Hey, this is Matt with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. This is Friday, September the 28th. We're going to wrap up our chart lesson real quick. It's a little bit before 3, but it's Friday. I want to get out of here early. My son's got another football game tonight, and I want to make it to that. So I want to get out of here a little bit early today. So I'm going to wrap this thing up and call it a weekend myself. It really just kind of turned out to be a range day. I really thought we were going to have another strong trend again today. We had an overnight gap again. We didn't quite fill it. We were really close. I think it was up here. Was up here around 42, and you see we didn't quite get there. Of course, we still got 20 minutes left. It wouldn't surprise me if we don't run it up there and get it before the day's over. But the way things have gone lately, who knows? So. I really thought it was going to be kind of a reversal type day and we were going to have another big up day, but at this point it looks more like a range day here than it does a trend day of any kind or any kind of reversal day. So at this point I'd call this a trend, a range day, unless we end up making a new high here and going higher. And even then I would still probably say we were in this 43 to 30, which is about a 13-point range. So. But really, we spent most of the day in this range here from 30 to about 36, 37 area, and we did break above that, but we couldn't sustain it. At least we haven't yet. So as you can see, at no time is this area right in here really act as a support. I mean, we broke above it, but we keep trading back under it, and it's acting as resistance more than it is support. So until we get some support out of it, then you got to call that resistance for now. So, but let's talk about the trades. And you notice I got a bunch of lines on here, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. And it's just something I've been working at, but I know there's a lot of you that like to do back testing and check things. And so I'm going to give you something to look at and to play with that, you know, and I've seen this before, but I'm trying to find a better way to help people decide when to enter back with a trend again. And so I've been looking at this and playing with it, and I'll just show you what I'm seeing, and you can tell me what you think at that point. So, we opened up right in this area, right in here somewhere. But here's your trend line from the overnight coming right down through here. And then you didn't really have a channel. You had this line coming here. So it's kind of a wedge, and a wedge pattern is generally a reversal pattern. And that was another reason I like this to the upside out of here, is because these lows were holding along this line, and then really this support right here at 1430 started holding. And so from that point on, it really was a reversal, and I'm still not convinced that we're going lower from here, at least not today. I mean, we don't have a lot of time to go too much lower, but of course I've seen it run 15 or 20 points in the last 5 minutes of trading, so anything is possible at this point. But I'm still thinking we may push up. We've got one big leg here. It's fairly bullish, so it wouldn't surprise me to see another one, but we got this big leg down here, so maybe we get another leg down. We'll see what happens, but we'll come back and check that. But for now, definitely this is a wedge pattern, and they generally are reversal type patterns. But here's another thing too: a reversal or a break of a trend line, and then a correction. The correction only has to be, basically the rules say a correction that lasts a minimum of an hour or more. And so that, if you see, this correction started at around 10:45. And it lasted till almost 1 o'clock. So that's enough for this correction to be over and for us to start trending down again. So you got to keep that in mind. You can't lose sight of that. And but anyway, just something to think about. And maybe I should have had that drawn right there. But I'll talk about these lines in a minute. These lines, I'll talk about that, and maybe I just didn't have that one drawn correctly. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Let's go over the trades real quick, then we'll come back to that with whatever time we got left. But we're trending down, and we got a double top here at the EMA. We're looking for reasons to go short, and notice that we got a double top. We got that single tick higher that turned down. That's a great place to go short, and you can see how it rocketed down. That was one of the best trades of the day right there. If you didn't catch this long over here, and so nice setup, and then we had a little double bottom, and there was even long here. I didn't mark it because it was really risky going long there. I took it, but I didn't get much out. I just basically got a scalp out of it, and that was it. So, and that was, I really thought we were going to turn down at the EMA again there, maybe make another leg like this, but we didn't. We went up, and then we had another chance to get short right here. Another basic double top. This one's got a big stem to it. So second entry short right there, and another nice little easy trade. Again, you only got a scalp out of this because it got your 4 ticks and then backed up. Unless you were giving it more room, you didn't get the second part of this move down. Then we finally had a break of the trend line here, and notice this. Another double top, so you could go short here, but I marked this one in green because it's so, let me back out a little bit. It's so choppy that it was kind of risky because you didn't know that we may not, it wasn't clear that we may tick down and then go on up and make another leg similar to this one and then come back down and test the low. And that's why I'm working on these trend lines to kind of help with this. But if you took that one, it did meet our criteria because it's the first break of the trend line. We've pulled back to the EMA. We've actually gotten a little above the EMA, but we made a double top right across here where this previous resistance was last time, and we went down. And you can see how really the buyers had come in at this point, and they really didn't muster up a lot of buying until we broke down here and made this double bottom. But when we made that double bottom, excuse me. But when we made that double bottom and then a little higher high right there, that was the place to go long. And any runners would have been safe here, and you would have caught this whole move up. And but if you missed it, there was a breakout pullback long here. Once we got way above the EMA, it pulled back, it touched it again. So it's a breakout pullback long and another chance to get long. So another great chance to get long. But really right in through here, there weren't any trades until we broke lower and failed down here. I kind of made this double bottom again. And really, you probably would have had your stuff down here. And you notice that's a perfect bounce off that. And you got stems all the way up here, so along the bottom. And so that's a good sign that there's a lot of buying coming in here. They kind of drawing the line in the sand. And I notice we're going higher over here again. So that's what I pretty much figured. We'll see. So another chance to get in on a breakout pullback long right there, and if you bring your line down, you can see that we broke higher right there, pulled back, and those stems in there are a good sign. When we made that, and when you go that low and you turn back up and close that high, that's a pretty strong buying. So going long right there was another nice place to enter. All you got out of that was a scalp. So if you didn't take this breakout pullback long, you probably, or if you didn't enter here and you didn't enter here, then if this was where you entered, then you probably didn't get any more unless you gave this more room than break even on your runner. So that's something to keep in mind. Then our next trade is right here. Notice we're way overdone here. Notice this overlap way away from the EMA. It broke higher, so chance to short there. And if you drew your line and copied it and drug it up, you can see, this is just a copy of that line. I drag it up here, and you can see we broke higher and failed. So I didn't mark it because I don't teach that trade, but it is a tradable. It does meet our criteria for price action. It's usually a good trade, and you can see it was a pretty good trade. And but there's 2 legs back to the trend line, and again, I just drew the trend line off those first couple of swings there. And generally, what you'll find is if you got a couple of overlap, you kind of draw it where you touch the first one and the second one, and it could have even been that first one and that second one, but I think it was this one. And we got our trend line break here. Now we're trying to go make a new high, but really we had enough to have a correction there, so we could be, we don't necessarily have to go back and test that high. Wouldn't surprise me if we do, though. So anyway, that was all I marked for the day. There was another short up here. We made another little double top right back at the trend channel line again. And so there was a short right there. If you recognize the trend channel and you took it again, I didn't mark it because it's just not wide. When you got to move that strong, even when you get, but notice how we got the overlap way away from the EMA. But you got to enter up here. You can't, you got to enter below the first bar that it turns below. You can't wait until, I had a trader send me some charts, and you get the reversal up here, you get the double top, but they're not entering until way down here, and then you're too close to the EMA, and it's too dangerous. And same thing here, I believe they, the setup's here, but they don't enter till way down here, and it would have worked for you that time, but you can't hesitate. If you hesitate, you've missed the trade, because you're only guaranteed to get 4 ticks, and then it could reverse. And don't ask me why it's 4 ticks. I didn't make the rule. But I can tell you this, I've traded this and I've watched it long enough that I know that if you're scalping a counter trend trade, if you get more than 4 ticks, you've done extremely well, because it's amazing how many times you will get just enough. It really takes 6 ticks, because if you're entering on the stop, you got to move 4 more ticks, so there's 5, and then you usually have to move 1 more through your order. That's 6 ticks, so it takes 6 ticks, and it's amazing how many times you will see a 6-tick move on a setup, and that is all it gets, and then suddenly it's racing in the other direction. So if you wait too late to enter, you're taking a huge risk. And if you try to get more than 4 ticks on some of these trades, you're taking a huge risk. Now, in both these cases, you could have got a lot here, but you could have been like yesterday, and look what would have happened if you shorted any of those moves up just about, and try to get any more. If you entered too late or tried to get more than 4 ticks, you would have got burned here no matter. You would have got burned here no matter what. You would have got burned here no matter what. If you entered here, 1, 2, 3, 4, you got just enough. But if you entered down here, no, you waited too late. Same thing here. If you waited and you had to get in below that little doji, if you waited down here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you had just enough still there. But it's really risky, and you didn't know over here today that same thing wouldn't happen off these highs. So don't be taking those, you got to be really careful about counter trend trading, and that's why I don't mark these trades, because that's another level of price action that you got to be really good at, and you got to know when you're wrong, and you got to be willing to take a real tight stop on. These are the ones you have to take a real tight stop on. You get short below that bar, and there's really no reason to short that bar. It is kind of a doji, but you really didn't have a short until below this bar, and of course there was still enough room there on that one, because you got your overlap. Notice that you got this overlap way away from the EMA, and then it shot higher. That's a good sign. Here you didn't get your overlap till right here, but look how far away that is from the EMA. And now we know for sure the trend channel line's up here, because we got it off both those moves. And so that's a good sign. And when we made a double top and then turned down, right there's your short, and that was a fairly easy. But if you waited in here, you didn't have enough room, and it started up again. And when it starts up again on a move like this, you got to exit, especially if it's coming off the EMA, which at the time the EMA was up here. It turned down when these bars went on down, so at the time that was a bounce off the EMA. So you got to be extremely careful. And I didn't mark anything else after that. There really weren't any more good entries coming down here, because I was thinking, you're looking for long still, and it just so happens it continued to go long, go farther short. But that's why you keep a runner too. But you probably wouldn't be keeping a runner off this. You're just waiting for a setup for a long, and it really got too choppy in here, and we're way below the EMA. So it was risky going long here until we got back above the EMA. Or either we got way away from the EMA like here and had the overlap, and then tried to go lower and made a little double bottom. You got to find a reversal pattern, and this almost looks like a reversal pattern here. So if you got trapped here, I could understand why. But notice by the time you got to go long, how close you were to the EMA on that trade, and that's the reason not to take it right there. You're better off to miss that trade than to get in when you got all this price action. Now notice the difference between this pattern and this one. Over here, all the closes are just about above the EMA, and then we broke lower just momentarily and kissed the trend line and then turned up. The way to enter this though was to drop a limit order back in here when this broke higher, but even then it was probably okay to go long here above this bar, simply because we had this trap down here. We had a double bottom and we broke lower, and it's coming off the trend line. Notice how we couldn't close below that trend line. So, and we didn't have that over here. We're way below the trend line, and by the time you could enter, you're right there at the EMA, and that's not the place to enter. You had a little better spot here, but again, you got this trend line coming down through here now, and you haven't broken it yet. So you got to be careful about entering too close to that trend line or that EMA. And here's the first time you really got any overlap way down here that's far enough away from the EMA. So if you entered here, it was probably okay, but look at the time, and that's why I didn't mark it. It's still not a real great setup because this is still kind of a bearish looking bar. But now we do have two legs down too, so another thing to be thinking about right there. But anyway, that's enough about the lesson. Let me show you this stuff real quick, and then I'm going to wrap it up. Like I said, I've been trying to determine a way to help people determine when the counter trend move or the correction is over. And so I've been playing with this, and I don't know that I've got enough data to say this is a sure thing each time, but it's something I've been playing with, and I want to show it to you, and then you can take it and play with it yourself and see if I know a lot of you, like I said, like to do the back testing and go back and study your charts, and this will be something good for you to study. But what I'm doing is I'm trying to get a trend line off of the corrections. And notice what happens. You break the trend line, and you either come back and test the trend line, or at least come back and make a new high. And look at that. You had a nice double top. You ticked above it, turned down. Great place to go short. Then here's the next correction. And a lot of times it's your closes is what I'm using. It seems to work real well if you use the closes. It just really depends. You just got to see what it looks like. And you can see that's holding the price action really well. And then you can see this one, it's holding it really well up through here. And then look, we finally get a break, and we come back and test it. And look what happens. Then you get your next sell-off. And look, again, look, we got this trend line coming up through here, and you can see that's holding the prices real well. Then we break it, we come back, we make a little double top, we test the trend line, and look, then it sells off again. And this one didn't sell off as strongly, but the trend is waning now. We're getting down here in this kind of wedge pattern. We got a break of the trend line, and this is good enough for a retest. And then the trend reversed. And so now you got to start doing this in reverse. And we really didn't have, actually, let me show you this one. I didn't even notice this one till just now. But you kind of got a trend line coming down through there, and we broke it, and we came back, and we tried to test it, and it couldn't even get that low. But maybe the trend line's more like that right there. I believe it probably is. You see it touched there, and it touched, and then look, boom. So it even worked on that one. But here's your next one, and I got it off the first couple of swings, and we finally broke it, came back and we tested it, and we also caught this trend line, and then boom. And now look at this one. I tried to find it on this one. We kind of coming back down through here, and maybe it's off those top couple of swings there, but we really still never tested this one. And then we were but we kind of made a double bottom here. This was kind of previous resistance, and now it is acting as support. But anyway, this is just something to look at to help you. You know, if you can get a trend line up, back up to the, a short-term trend line that gets back up anywhere near or back down anywhere near the previous trend line, and then you break it and you come back and test it, it's just something to look at. And spend some time with it. But today it would have kept you, it would have alerted you to the perfect time to enter almost every time. And like I said, I haven't looked at it that closely because I'm usually looking for these traps like this and entering right here, and looking for double tops near the trend line and entering there. So I hadn't really paid that much attention to this trend line, but I like what I've seen the last few days, and I didn't want to say anything until I at least looked at a couple of days of data, but I've noticed this on multiple days. So just something to play with. Let me know if you do, give me some feedback on it, and let me know how it works out for you. And looks like we're going to close inside the range today, so I'd call this kind of a range day. And notice where this high is right here. And this is something else to look at. Remember how I'm always talking about how prices always, this market's efficient and it always comes back and retests important areas. This was an important lows because look how it held. And look when we broke through, I mean, it was off to the races and we never retested it. And now look at that line and look where that correction came to. Actually, if you draw it right off the lows, I bet it was a perfect touch. Exactly, look at that. So that's something else to think about. That would have been a good place to think about selling up there on that huge move up. It's another reason to sell that. It made a double top right off of that, right off of those lows. So you'll see that a lot. And like I said, if you see prices break through and they don't come back and test it, you know, a lot of times it won't be long. And that's like right here. Look what happened. We broke above those highs right there, those important highs, and we never retested it until we finally came back during the overnight and retested it and actually went lower. And there might even be something else down here we didn't retest. So never retested that at 1428. We broke above it. And look at there. We were probably trying to retest that too and couldn't quite get it. 1429 was about as low as we got. So just something else to look at. I'm going to wrap it up. It's Friday. We're about 20 minutes into this thing, a little over 20 minutes. I'm going to wrap it up. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com. Hope you had a great trading day. Hope you had a great trading week, and we'll see you next time.